baby vomited all over his rotavirus vaccine.
Yikes.
Yikes.
That sounds yucky. Morning.
How's that possible?
Maybe he's so scared of needles that he just threw up all over the person who was
I
giving.
read it, and it's very possible.
What does it say?
Are you gonna get flagged if I read it?
Oh, probably.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't mean to say that word while you were streaming. I didn't think it was on yet.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll see what happens. Hey, Avery. Hey, Anya. They don't like it. They're so picky.
Oh, I can't
They don't, and it's weird because there are people who definitely say way more inflammatory
You
things.
should do. You should do a stream where you just do
All
sign
the
language,
Or just sign language?
and you don't
I
ever
don't know
speak.
nearly enough sign language for that.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just use the limited ones I have.
Just don't speak and see if you still get one.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Well, there's also a thing where it says, like, very often, even when I'm standing right here, it says no face detected.
well, that's just being mean.
It's so cruel. Like right now, it literally just said it to me. It said no face detected. My face is right here. Like I understand if you don't like my face, but you can't say it's not a face.
It's, I live in with them right now.
I'm like 90% certain that my face is a face, whether you like it or not.
I've seen it.
I've seen it too. I can see it on the camera.
We all can.
We all can?
Yes. This isn't the 90s movie Face Off, but
That's good. Face off.
Face Off.
I'm just dropping things left and right. Good morning. You want another one? Yeah, full or shots?
Full, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How's everyone doing? Does it look to you like I have a face? I didn't say if they like it or if it's a good face. I just said, is it a face?
That's what I'm saying. Never even asked that.
Jack says, morning, Sasha and Secret Family. That's us. She said, morning, Sasha and Secret Family. So not just Secret Husband, you and Secret Baby.
We are secrets.
Face better, do better. It's true. TikTok doesn't think I have a face. Sad. Oh yeah, they don't even know about these yet. They're gonna make a video about these later. Aren't they cute? They're so cute.
What's a kissing?
Oh, a face!
Whoa.
They're so cute. Someone from our Patreon sent them to me. There's more in the box. I'll show it to you all later. They're very sweet. It's a very cute box of goodies. It came in the mail while we were gone. You did, Becca. Oh my goodness. What is it? Do I want to know? Is it a secret? They are very cute. Yeah, exactly. Stephanie. Yes, that's correct. That is correct. There you go, my dear.
Out of everything we got in Germany, etc., the baby's just gonna end up liking those things the most.
Well, these are her. What we got in Germany are her decorations mostly. Oh, but we did get her some stuffies. I think she'll like those.
She'll probably like those the most because they're very cute, though.
Yeah, but so are the stuffed animals that we got in Germany. I don't know. I think the hedgehog's pretty stinking adorable. He's an adorable hedgehog, you guys. An adorable hedgehog. If it did, I didn't know about it. Really? What a bummer. Why do we think it did that? Jack is being mean to you. Is it because of fantasy football? Did something happen? What? No, she said Jack's being mean to her, and I asked her if she was being mean to her because of fantasy football. Which is totally possible and totally related. Because they're in the same league and against one another, so. Jack's being mean to Ray about fantasy football. Uh-oh. Well, I didn't have anyone playing yesterday, so nothing has happened for me so far this week. I had no players, which I find cruel and unusual punishment. We went to watch the game at a bar last night with friends so we could give them their gifts from Germany, but then I didn't have any. You've been up for 7 hours. Oh, well, you know, you're on the East Coast.
Playing that you liked?
Who?
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, I like Kirk Cousins. He's just not on my team.
I thought you were talking about how it wasn't interesting because...
No, I wasn't saying it wasn't interesting. I just, like, you know, I want someone to root for.
You did have someone to root for.
I mean, I did root for him, but good morning, guys.
And he won. He got 500 yards.
Whoever has him is sitting pretty.
Yes. 500 yards.
Can you do me a favor, babe?
Yes.
Can you text me a reminder to descowl the coffee machine today?
Okay.
I need to do it and I keep forgetting. But I can't set a reminder because the phone is right here. Thank you. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Don't forget to descowl your coffee makers sometimes. Because it's good to do that. Uh-oh, who got filtered? It wasn't me. Did everybody have fun yesterday? That is... That's really funny. You and Anya spelled it the same way at the same time.
Descowl?
Descowl.
Descowl.
It's descale. But that's okay.
Say it like that though next time.
Descale.
You said descowl.
Descal. I did. You're right. You're right.
It's too late. You already married me. No take backs.
I wasn't trying to take it back. I was just explaining the spelling. I am going to descale our coffee maker today after this.
Well, that's gross.
It's such a process, but it needs it. I can taste that it's starting to need it.
Salty.
It's true. It does make us descowl. It's true. Liz said there's no return policy on secret husbands.
We'll see.
Oh, don't say that. That's so mean.
I know, you're so mean to me.
That's terrible. Hello?
I don't know that descowl is spelled that way. It's not nice.
It's not nice. Okay. Where is our book? There it is. Just so Mark told me he will only return me if I melt a trumpet. Well, that's great news. Recalibration. Yeah. How do you spell recalibration?
RECALIBRATION.
Yay! Good job. That's exactly right. Melting a trumpet seems like a lot of work, to be honest with you, Liz. That feels like a lot of work. Yesterday's book club was great, and it is up on the YT. It's been up actually since yesterday, Jennifer, so you can see that there. I did want to tell you all, however, I am having extreme difficulty. I've been fighting for multiple days to download day 2 of this book to upload it. So day 1 and day 3 are uploaded, but I cannot get day 2. I do not know why. Oh, I see, Becca. Well, you got a spelling instead. Can you spell pneumatromicroscopovolcanocosis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was better than I was gonna do.
When I spell really hard words, I sound like a Charlie Brown parent.
I see that. Wow. Pneumonia. He promised me no buying trumpets until we were engaged, and then he bought one before we got engaged. Well, you can return it then, I guess. The P is silent. Pneumonia. Mnemonic.
Oh yeah, that's all pneumonia.
Yeah. How are we all today? Is everyone feeling good? Is everyone ready for Roll for Slime tonight? I hope so. I hope you are. Everything is good there. All right, so we are reading chapter 4 today. Let's get into chapter 4 and then we'll get started because we have a lot to do today. Emotional support, Jelly. The Yew Tree Inn was the sort of village pub that Josh had always imagined when he imagined a British pub. There was a hand-painted sign swinging from a beam that extended out across the street, and tubs of flowers surrounding the patio out front. On top of the roof, the straw had been worked into the shape of a game bird standing there, as if about to strut across the thatch. The walls of the pub were thick and ancient, the door was low, and the windows were diamond-paned. Inside, the ceiling had low beams hung with horse brasses, and there was a wall devoted to large frames holding... Josh craned to see what it was. Chestnuts on strings with rows of text beside them? The place was pleasantly full, and whilst people looked around as he entered, he gained no particular attention. Well, that was good, he supposed. He'd been slightly worried that it was going to be one of those yokel situations where only locals were welcome. He stood, eyeing the bar, and wondered if one had to form a queue. The English did love queuing. What can I get you? The woman behind the bar looked very sensible. Josh, who'd been raised in Seattle and bartended throughout law school, looked over the beers and the beers on offer and tried to translate them into what he wanted. There were familiar brand names, and there was an exciting looking array of cask ales with names like Mad Bishop and the Squealing Piglet. He decided to stall. Hi, yeah, I'd like to get a table for dinner. Sure, help yourself. I'll bring some menus over, and just what do you want to drink? He was just about to go for a Mad Bishop when the barmaid's attention shifted to someone behind him who said, Hi, Sharon. Oh, you've got the Essex Blonde back? And Josh turned to see a woman hanging up her jacket on the wall hooks as if she lived there. The other two people with her did the same, and Josh wondered if he should, or if this was a privilege reserved for locals. Yeah, I'm going fast today, though, so if you want some, have at it today. You could sell coals to Newcastle, Shaz. 2 pints when you're ready. Where's the author? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean who's the author? The author of this is Kate Johnson. It was actually one of my... It's a real term? Good Lord, Jack. Good Lord. I thought you were doing a question and answer. That was yesterday. We did that already. Yes, that was yesterday. It's up on YT for anyone who missed it. Yes. That's fair, Becca. Yes. Sharon started pulling a pint of beer from a pump labeled with a cartoon of a saucy blonde. Josh smiled. He knew perfectly well blonde was a type of beer. They were in Essex after all. Well, I guess I'll try the Essex Blonde too, he said to Sharon, and as the newcomer came to stand beside him at the bar, she glanced at him. An expression that she couldn't quite read came over her face. It looked like slight horror, but almost instantly it was gone, covered by a slightly doubtful look. Are you sure? She said. It's nearly 6%. 2 pints of that and Sharon will have you... Wait, sorry. Oh my gosh, I lost complete track of what my brain was doing. Wrong voice. Are you sure? She said. It's nearly 6%. 2 pints of that and Sharon will have to take your keys off you. Well, actually, I walked, he said. Oh, well, will wonders never cease. Avery, what do you want?
This was said to the large bearded man who'd come in with the woman beside Josh. He sported large sparkly earrings and a necklace and a bracelet to match, and he also wore a Metallica t-shirt, biker boots, and jeans that were covered in chains. Beside him was an extremely attractive young woman with long braids and the sort of figure that it was hard to look away from. Her skin gleamed the same rich dark brown as the chestnut framed on the wall. She smiled and said, "I'm Blessing, and this is Avery. That's Essie. Hi, I'm..." He turned to look at the woman by the bar, and for a second he wondered if he had inhaled too many fumes, because the world just seemed to blur a little. Essie was, well, she looked like a, I don't know. That is, she was definitely, she said politely. "I know you," Josh said, and all three of them froze instantly. Just for a second, but they did freeze, and Josh had the strangest sensation that everything around them went quiet before the sound returned, as if his ears had just unblocked. "Do you?" said Essie, taking a big gulp of her alarmingly yellow beer. Nobody seemed to notice the odd moment. "Yes," Josh frowned, because he was absolutely sure he knew her, only he couldn't remember where from. He tried to look her over without being obvious. She was of average height and build, with average colored hair and eyes. He blinked. No, wait, that wasn't right. He took a sip of his own beer, which was like liquid food, but alcohol, and it looked as if she'd turned away and handed the others their drinks. Her hair was ginger. She'd fastened it into two thick plaits? That seems weird. From which it was desperately fighting to escape. And the exposed nape of her neck was pale and freckled. No jewelry apart from a thin gold chain around her neck, and the blue plastic arm of her glasses was visible just over her ear. She wore a purple striped t-shirt under faded dungarees and the sort of boots that could probably withstand having a house dropped on them. He inhaled, and there was a sharp scent of snow, the tang of pine needles, and a smoke that had nothing to do with the fireplace. Oh, it's a type of braid? Okay, I didn't know that. He also felt someone's gaze on him, and then he found Avery looking at him. And when he glanced back at Essie, she seemed entirely average yet again. "What?" Essie whispered as they sat down with their drinks. "The fuck just happened to me?" "He remembered you," Blessing said, looking shocked. I tried to project a quick filter on you," Avery said, "to make you forgettable." "Thanks." Essie didn't dare look over her shoulder. "Is he looking over here?" Blessing took a swig of her beer, which afforded her the opportunity to glance over at the bar. "Mm-hmm. You must have met him somewhere else," Avery said. The house made people forget them, but the outside of the grounds were normal people living in the normal village, albeit nobody could ever quite remember where. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would remember," Essie muttered. Josh Henderson was cute, no doubt about it, and there was a distinct lack of cute men around here, or even in vague proximity to her age in Goodwinter. "Well, maybe it's fate," hissed Blessing. "It's destiny." "Well, you shut up about destiny," Essie hissed back. "This isn't a romance novel." What's wrong with romance novels?" Avery demanded. "Nothing. They're just not very realistic." "Dear, you are a witch." Essie tried to ignore that, and even as frost formed on her pint glass, she said, "Well, I've just had enough premonitions for today, that's all." "Yes, but none of them were about him," said Blessing. "And we all know you can't have a premonition about your own destiny. Ergo, he must be part of your fate." Essie and Avery stared at her. "Honestly, that's the most terrible logic I've ever heard," Avery said. "Oh, look, Avery," Blessing said loudly. "Isn't that Danny Willis who tattoos you were designing? Let's go talk to him." But Avery began as Josh was glancing at them, and he made his way over to the empty table beside them. "But it's really important right now," Blessing said, elbowing him, "that we go over there and talk to him." She grinned at Josh as she towed Avery past him and practically pulled him away. Avery turned back to Essie, making a few quick motions with his hands. He felt her hair subtly restyle itself, and he probably put a lick of mascara on her too. She should be annoyed about that part, but Josh's eyes warmed when he realized that she was alone. Your friends are leaving? He said, bemused, and Essie sighed. I think we're being set up, she said, and she pushed out the chair opposite her with her foot. Stay for a drink, and if we both can't stand each other, we'll drink up real fast, right? Josh looked over her and smiled, and Essie smiled helplessly back. He really was quite handsome. I'm Josh, by the way, he said. I know, she thought. Hi, Josh. She watched him take a sip of his beer and make a face like he was considering whether or not he liked it. I'm from Seattle, he explained, home of the microbrewery. Oh, seems like they're everywhere these days. Oh, they sure are. Wow, I'm such a great date, she thought. Was this a date? Yeah, it was. It had been... Hey! It had been so long. Essie had totally forgotten what you were supposed to do or say. She didn't suppose that demanding to know how he was resisting the house's perception spell was a great opener, though. There was a sticking plaster on his thumb, sticking mostly to itself the way that they did. What'd you do to yourself there? Oh, he regarded it. I cut it on, but... It was a great and terrible wound sustained while doing very manly construction work around the house, which I'm renovating myself. That wretched a smile from her. The plaster covered about half an inch of his thumb pad. Wow, very impressive. I'm amazed that you're up and about so soon after a devastating injury. I know. The doctor said they had never seen anyone quite so brave. Well, I expect you easily could have lost your whole hand. I once knew... Essie began and then stopped because this was meant to be light, flirty banter, and she'd just been about to launch into a story about Jerry Fairlamb from down in the common who had crushed his hand with a cider press. Josh gave her an expectant look, waiting for more, and Essie drank some of her beer, and then silence fell between them. What's with the poems? Josh wanted to know. In the frames? Are those nuts in there? Oh, phew, she could do this. Conkers. The Conker tournament, as he said. We hold it every autumn. The winning Conker gets framed and Bill, Sharon's dad, writes a poem about it. You're kidding me. No, I'm totally serious. People come from all over for the U-Tree Conker tournament. All over, huh? Josh was studying them with an adorable wrinkle between his brow. Once from as far as Hertfordshire, Essie said solemnly, and Josh smiled at that in a manner which suggested that he had at least looked at a map once or twice in his life. It'll be on in a few weeks, Essie said casually. Open to all newcomers, if you're still here, that is. Josh Henderson said, I guess I will be, so sure. He took a doubtful sip of his beer, and he didn't look like he was enjoying it very much. What even is a conker? That sounds kind of rude. Well, it's a nut. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, and Issy winced at her own mistake. No, sorry. It's a seed from the horse chestnut tree. Like chestnuts that you roast on an open fire? Yes, but don't eat these. He smiled at her easily. Well, you'll have to show me how to play the game. Sure, Essie said, and she drank some more beer and then said, I'll show you how to swing a nut. Josh had his pint halfway to his mouth. I'm never sure how to take it, he said, when a woman says that she'll swing my nuts. Just one nut, Essie clarified. Oh, right, of course. Into someone else's. He laughed at that, and as Essie figured, he looked great laughing. Brackets around his mouth as if he often laughed, and he had great American dentistry. I could like this man a lot, she thought. But wait, not too much. There was a reason Essie didn't go on dates, and it wasn't that witching and relationships didn't go together. So how come you bought Brook Manor Farm? She asked, and then his laughter faded to puzzlement. Bugger, he won't remember telling you about that. Mrs. Sockburn told me, she said. I'm assuming that you're the handsome American she was talking about. Mrs. Sockburn said I was handsome? He pretended to swoon, and then they told me I'd find dating harder in England, but with Mrs. Sockburn, I'd be wary if I were you. They said her first husband did die of exhaustion. He laughed again at that. Well, she sure as hell doesn't put energy into cleaning. I've been here a week now, and all I've done is sweep, mop, and wipe. Do you know how to get rid of mice by any chance? Oh, get a cat. Something less lethal? Get a lazy cat? Josh shrugged. There also appears to be no kind of heating. Like, there's an electric shower that heats as it goes, but no hot water's coming out of the sink or the tub. And there are radiators, but I can't figure out how to switch them on. Oh, I seem to remember a Rayburn, as he said, cocking her head and trying to picture Mrs. Cropley's kitchen. What? A big kind of stove in the kitchen? She tried to gesture with her hands. Like, you keep it on at all times and it heats the water and the power radiators. We have one at our house. Josh looked hopeful. Do you know how to fix them? Essie laughed. Oh, good God, no. But I'll find you the number of a person who does. She got out her phone and Josh gave her a grateful look. Oh, good. It will be so nice to wash dishes in warm water. Yeah, all right. Tiny Tim. Essie found him and the phone number. She hesitated and then she said, as casually as she could, why don't you give me your number so I can text it to you? Josh smiled slowly as if he knew exactly what she was doing and recited it to her. And then her text arrived and he sent one in reply. Do you know any chimney sweeps? Well, yes, Mr. Henderson, Essie said. I might think you only wanted me for my local knowledge if you keep asking these questions. Too late. She remembered that he hadn't actually got around to telling her his surname. Oh, sorry. Why, yes, Mr. Henderson. That's where the surname. But at least it was right there on her phone now. That's not true. I also want you for your jokes about nuts. She laughed at that, and she carried on laughing all evening, even after Blessing and Avery had left, both of them nudging and winking like they were in a Carry-On movie. And she had coaxed Josh into eating beer-battered fish and chips with mushy peas, and he had coaxed her into sharing a bottle of wine. This is nice, she thought. Dating is nice. Essie watched Josh refill her glass and speculated on how long she could spin this out before something went wrong, like him forgetting that she existed, or falling foul of one of Avery's transformations and needing years of therapy to be convinced that he wasn't actually a frog, or the dreaded frostbite incident, for example. Stop it, Essie. Maybe nothing's gonna go wrong. She would just have to stop him from trying to come home with her and plan some firm excuse for where she was going to be on cross-quarter day, and then, yeah, everything would be fine. Essie pushed aside the headache-inducing premonition and the hole in the conservatory roof, the parrots who were still shouting, "Lawyer, son of Hob!" and the disturbing truth that Josh had remembered her when he should have forgotten. And she smiled at his anecdote about the Seattle Seahawks. Everything was going to be totally fine. The cool evening air hit Josh as he followed Essie out of the pub, and it made him realize that the last glass of wine with dessert might have been a bad idea. But there was Essie in a light jacket, showing no signs of the cold. Josh told himself that it probably wasn't much colder here than in Seattle, and he pretended that he was fine. Should he offer to walk her home? What about when they got there? A kiss goodnight, or maybe an invitation in? Come on, Seahawk, I'll walk you home, she said and linked her arm with his. That was nice, really nice. Essie had the sort of rounded figure that it felt good to touch, even if it was only with his arm and through a layer of clothing. She felt solid like this, and Josh had spent all evening looking at her and talking to her, and yet he still had this unnerving sense that he really didn't know what she looked like, or if she was even real. Wait, shouldn't I be walking you home? He said as they set off down the middle of the road. It was a quiet village, and he'd observed earlier that in an old village such as Goodwinter, sidewalks appeared to be entirely optional. Essie arched an eyebrow at him. Do I want to know where you... Wait, do you want to know where I live or something? She said. Oh, well, good point, but... Wait, sorry, I read that totally wrong. Let's back up a little. Sidewalks appeared to be entirely optional. Essie arched an eyebrow at him. Do I want you to know where I live? She said. Oh, good point. But will you be all right going home by yourself? My house is kind of out of the way, and there aren't even streetlights in most of the village. Oh, trust me, Essie said, as a cold winter wind blew over them. There's nothing in this village that's more dangerous than me. He laughed nervously. What, are you like a ninja or something? No, not exactly, said Essie, and something in the confident way that she strode ahead of him made him drop the subject. All right, I'll take your word for it. You said you've always lived here? She nodded. Yep, My family's been here for centuries. Oh, that must be nice, Josh said wistfully. I'm not even from the same state as my mom. And now you've moved continents. How come? I mean, also, why good winter? Well, Josh said and tried to decide how much he should tell her. He'd avoided the subject over dinner, but now the cool night air was there and the wine and the warmth of Essie beside him. It had his tongue flapping loose. I inherited this house and I didn't know what to do about it. I figured I'd sell it, maybe, but then... And the whole nightmare with Maya and his job in Siena had reminded him that he had applied for dual citizenship and he could live in the UK and... No, you don't have to tell me about it. It's okay, Essie said. He'd been silent for too long and Josh cleared his throat. So anyway, I just quit my job. My relationship had ended badly, to say the absolute least, he thought. And I needed to get away and I figured I could at least come see the house that was left to me. And then you fell in love, she said lightly. With Goodwinter? Relieved, he nodded. Yeah, I mean, it's so pretty here, he said, looking around at the lights twinkling behind why can't I speak today? Lead-paned windows. That must mean something else in England. Yeah, it's not bad, Essie sighed. Everyone thinks that Essex is all towny, you know, fake tans, white stilettos, but 3/4 of the county is really rural. A constable painted here, well, not here, you know, but Dedham's Vale is only about a half an hour away. Constable? Wow, that wine had really gone to his head. He understood about a quarter of the words she just said. He painted the Haywain? Well, I'm sure he did. Essie gave him a sideways glance. Are you not an art lover, then? Josh tried to come up with an excuse to cover his lack of knowledge, and eventually he said, well, the only piece of art on the wall in the apartment I grew up in was a poster framed of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it had been a cracked frame at that. Indiana Jones, though. I approve. Mom's historical house had leaded windows. They're pretty. Oh, okay, cool. Well, there you go. You like Indiana Jones? He asked. Everybody likes Indiana Jones. Have you ever find someone who doesn't? You should run away from them and, like, run fast. She began to turn him towards a narrow opening between two high hedges. Speaking of running fast, Josh said, eyeing the dark passageway nervously, where are you taking me? He tried to ignore the little voices in his head, the voice that sounded a lot like Maya's that said he was a coward, but he was merely being sensible here. Well, it's a shortcut. She indicated a signpost, informing them that this was a public footpath. Brook Manor Farm, right? It's much quicker than going across the fields. But, Josh said as she tugged him down the narrow path, is it safe? I mean, it isn't even lit. What if you trip on something? Oh, I have excellent night vision. There were no streetlights here, it was true, and Essie carried no flashlight and hadn't even turned her phone torch on. What if I trip on something? Well, I'll keep you on your feet, she said. The path was about wide enough for the two of them to walk side by side, with the garden hedges quickly giving way to more rural setting. Trees loomed high on one side of them, with a ditch on the other side, separating them from a plowed field. The moon shone brightly, not quite full, silvering the fields and casting the copse of trees into dark shadows. Are there... Josh said, trying not to sound scared. What kind of wildlife do you have around here? There weren't bears, he was pretty sure about that, but wolves? No, probably not, although he knew there had been at least that one wolf in Outlander 300 years ago in Scotland, in a fictional setting, he reminded himself. Oh, said Essie with relish. Well, did you ever hear about the Essex lion? Coyotes, puma, the what now? Terrifying beast photographed in a meadow about, 10 years ago now. Huge maned creature. A lion? Common sense caught up with him. Did it escape from a zoo? No, someone's house. She walked in silence a few paces more and said, turned out to be a Maine Coon cat, and then zoom lenses were applied. Honestly, the most dangerous land mammal we have around here is probably, a cow. A cow? Yeah, bulls in mating season and all that. Don't worry about this county. Worst thing that can happen to you here is tripping on a bit of flint and turning your ankle a little bit. We've already established that I'm going to keep you upright as we walk. Uh-huh. Josh said as they turned toward another dark section of the footpath under some trees. He found himself coming to a stop. He didn't know Essie at all. He didn't know where they were, and he didn't know how to get back to his house. He willed away the panic growing in the pit of his stomach, and Essie stopped too, turning to face him. The moonlight glinted off her glasses. "It's really only 100 yards or so from here," she said. 100 yards of pitch-dark footpath under the low-hanging trees. The wind made a moaning sound, and he found himself clutching her arm even harder. That's what they always say in horror movies," he said, hating the way that his voice broke a little when he said it. "You just have to trust me for a few more minutes," she said. "I mean, I hardly know you," said Josh, and he was kind of drunk. She could take advantage of him. She could follow him home and break in. "And if our roles were reversed, you would have been pretty dumb to follow me down this path in the middle of nowhere." Oh, sorry, that's him. Sorry. "I mean, I hardly know you. And if our roles were reversed, you would have had to be pretty dumb to follow me down this path in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night," he added, trying to make his voice sound light and failing. She appeared to consider this for a moment. That is true, but mostly because you've only lived here a week and you probably would get us lost. Why don't you just switch the light on your phone? That way it'll be in your hands in case I decide to drink your blood or something, and then you can call the police." A light. Yeah, he could make his own light. He had a phone. He could call for help if he needed help. The light illuminated Essie's pale, freckled face, and she was smiling in a slightly concerned way. "You see?" she said, and Josh made himself take a breath and calm down. She was Essie. She wasn't Maya. Essie was nice and normal, and not about to do anything mad or dangerous. Josh cleared his throat. The police around here, do they deal with a lot of vampire attacks?" With the flashlight on his phone switched on, he could see the path ahead ended in less than a promised 100 yards, and he opened up onto an unpaved road. He began walking, and Essie squeezed his arm as she came with him. "Oh, sure. Remember those bats? They really are vampires in discorporate form." "Oh, yeah? What were they doing out in the daylight, then?" "They were just riled up by..." Her footsteps faltered. Josh tugged her upright, laughing. "Excellent night vision, huh? Now who's going to take a turn on their ankle?" But Essie was staring at him with her face pale. "You remember the bats?" she said. He shrugged. "I didn't until you mentioned it." "Do you..." She paused and looked away, chewing her lip, and Josh realized the thing that Essie had, which he hadn't even noticed until now, was a sort of ironclad confidence. She knew who she was, and she knew where she was, and the reason that she wasn't frightened of the dark was that she was confidently expecting it to hold on and nothing to be frightening, except that now that certainty seemed to have drained away from her. Do you remember where you saw the bats?" she asked cautiously. Josh frowned. He didn't remember where he saw the bats. "Somewhere around the village," he said. "I went for a walk earlier." "Alone?" she said doubtfully. "Well, sure, yeah. I mean, I don't really know anyone else." "Right," she said. "Sure." She shivered. "Come on, we're nearly there." She started walking again, and Josh frowned a little at the darkness, but he followed along with her, and in less than a minute they were on a track that looked familiar to him. "There," she said, pointing to his right. And there was the entrance to Brook Manor Farms. The 5-bar gate stood open, the rotting wood being gently reclaimed by the ivy that swarmed over the low wall beside it. The unpaved road turned into what should have been a gravel track, but wasn't. And beyond it, he could see the edge of the house. His house. He looked back down at Essie. Her eyes were hidden by the reflection of her glasses, which shone his own face. "Go on," she said, and he rolled his eyes. "I shouldn't have doubted you," he said obediently. "No, you should not have doubted me." "You know this place like the back of your hand," he said, and picked up the hand that she had tucked into his arm. "I do," she said. "The back of your hand, which looks as if it had been attacked by one of those dangerous animals you keep saying don't exist in England." Essie tilted her head. "I said wild animals. I didn't say anything about bad-tempered cats who don't want their flea treatment." He smiled. "So what you're saying is that you know this place like something regularly savaged by angry beasts." Essie smiled back. She was standing very close now, and Josh breathed in and smelled wood smoke and cold and icy days. "Yes, but at least there are no vampires." "Are you sure about that?" His heart was beating fast. "Oh, I'm absolutely positive." "Well, that's a relief," he murmured, and then, Her other hand was touching his cheek, and her face was tilting up towards his, and her lips parted a little. Just for a second, her confidence seemed to dim slightly. Her face held a question, an invitation, and Josh had RSVP'd earlier. It seemed like such a long time since he'd kissed anybody, and here he was kissing Essie, or maybe she was kissing him. He really wasn't quite sure who'd started it, but it was a wonderful kiss, warm and soft and full of anticipation and excitement. He slid his arm around her to pull her as close as he kissed her back. This strange woman who walked alone in the darkness and kept goats in the hallway and had conversations with dogs. And Josh, as if she understood every word, which she might actually do because there was something very unusual about Essie. If only he could put his finger on it. Josh, is that you? Oh my goodness, so glad to see you. It's freezing out here. I'm still dressed for Providence. He turned his head slowly away and as if in a nightmare, away from the warmth of Essie's mouth and the softness of her body and back out into the cold of the night where a figure was approaching them. The light it held obscured its details, but the voice was too familiar to mistake. Are you expecting visitors? Said Essie, and Josh couldn't manage to speak. He still had his arms around her as Sienna approached, because it was Sienna. Nobody else had that sweet high voice and hair that shone pale and silvery in the moonlight, and nobody else would have turned up at his door in the certainty of a warm welcome. She and Essie would get along well, he thought distantly, and coldness rushed in where Essie had been holding him. Josh! The light was lowered and Sienna threw her arms around him. Boy, am I glad to see you! And as Josh looked around to try to figure out a way to explain this to Essie, he realized three things. That his sister had been lying to him about her whereabouts earlier, that she was quite heavily pregnant, and that Essie had vanished. Essie has vanished. Well, friends, I don't know what to tell you because I got a lot of prep to do today for Roll for Slime. I got to make base, I got to make lists, I got to do all sorts of stuff, and I got to descale the coffee machine. But we'll find out more tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow we read 2 chapters if we have time. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I will continue to try to download chapter 2, which so far I have been unsuccessful at. That's very funny, Becca. Yes, definitely. Okay, I love you all. We have Roll for Slime this afternoon. I will see you for that. And I'm gonna make, so we didn't get any FLAGS today, which is great, but we also didn't get any yesterday morning with Mallory. So I think I am going to make an event for tonight's Roll for Slime and see if making an event helps ward off some of those things. So if you guys can register for that, it'll be free, obviously, it's just on here, but just like register for to see if it keeps us from getting dings, you know? Maybe. Maybe not, I don't know, but I'm gonna try it. So I'll do that right after this, and then I'll make the lists, I'll post the lists, and see you all this afternoon at 4:30. Yes, sit outside, read, enjoy your life, it's good stuff, and have a great day until then. Bye guys. Maybe.